for having all this compute out there.
Man, if OpenAI can rob AMD, why can't I? Let's go.
And yet we still question, as you would.
Yeah, I want a deep partnership. Put 10% of the company in the bank. All right, well that was Lisa Su from AMD talking about their recent deal with OpenAI. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, no, I do think their demand for compute is amazingly currently bottlenecked. Yeah, so I think this is going to be a $500 stock. They have this drug. It's a really small market cap. You know, I'm assuming that they actually, yeah, I mean, it could go above 500 actually, but regardless, I assume they get a lot of dilution and it doesn't, I'm sure it'll be halted a million times, but it's super annoying. So basically, in this disease, you are missing an enzyme, and that enzyme is responsible for breaking down this substrate called heparan sulfate. And without that enzyme, this substrate accumulates in your brain, and then it basically kills you. People who can't break down this enzyme die at 15. And so, or 18. So by administering a copy of this enzyme, you can see the data on my screen. This line is the upper limit of normal. It actually gets them to the upper limit of, below the upper limit of normal, which is kind of amazing. So I think it's going to be a, you know, $500 stock, as crazy as that sounds, but this is my expertise, is gene therapies, rare diseases. This is not gene therapy, this is enzyme replacement therapy. This is kind of what I do. And this data is really good. It should be good enough for FDA approval. I mean, it's a slam dunk for FDA approval, actually. And basically, yeah, the street doesn't understand yet, but it reminds me of an old company called 𝗠𝗔𝗥𝗧𝗜𝗢𝗍, which got acquired for $8 billion by Alexion. Alexion overpaid for it, but we should be able to get $1 billion or $2 billion market cap here, and it's a 20 million market cap, which is kind of crazy. Maybe it's 30 now. It's still kind of nuts if you think about it. Market cap is way too low. They'll have to do some dilution. I mean, they need more cash for sure, but like, it's such a small, you know, amount that they need to dilute that, you know, even 1 million shares will do the trick. It's the delivery of the enzyme. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the, what do you call it, the drug price increase. People say, oh my gosh, it's up 300 or 400%. Yes, but from what market cap? The 20 million market cap is going to go to $1 billion. It's halted right now due to my statement, but I think it's pretty obvious. Even if you assume they have 1 million shares outstanding, which they have less than that, 40 million market cap for FDA-approved drug that's going to sell hundreds of millions is a layup. Yeah, it's just a brain shunt delivery called Ommaya shunt. It's very common for an intracerebroventricular delivery. My results are all over the place. NASDAQ poppy, depends on the exact marks and all that. Right now, the results are about to change a little bit. Bottom's rallying even further now. This rival news story, I don't know, news company, it's really annoying. I was preparing this presentation and everything, and yeah, of course I did preclinical work with animal models, other models. IonQ is a lot like Enron or WorldCom back when the bubble was crazy. People just buying stuff they don't even know what it is, they don't care. I mean, they're all pretty scammy. QUBT, D-Wave are probably the worst. Rigetti's the most honest. IonQ is like a whole new fraud. IonQ is spinning in circles so fast. Oh, sure, Ace. Capr, C-A-P-R. Make sure you buy that. And I hope you bought ATYR too. I'm sorry you weren't rich before, Ace. But yeah, you must have bought ATYR. And you should also short SPRB. Try it out. It's still not too late for Saba too, you're right. I love these guys. Introduction to probability.
𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙𝗙 Made in China.
Analex, glucarmazine, Not a real drug, folks. Not real. Not gonna happen. They couldn't get FDA approval, so they went to Europe. And then I know Macron very well. I know them very well. I know Putin. They're not gonna approve it.
There's a lot of types of retinitis pigmentosa. RP is tons of different. Now there's a lot of subtypes. No, we're short capper, ABXL, GALT, those are all our shorts. So the guy said he wants to inverse us should go ahead and buy those if he thinks inverse is such a good idea. I think it's still a buy at 66. That's halted again. Luxturna is out there, but you got to get the right gene. And then there are other companies making RP drugs. Yeah, so here's my DCF on a SPRB. I get $554 a share. And that's assuming they have 3 million shares outstanding, which was a very conservative assumption. I mean, all they have to do is sell 1 million shares right now, and they're pretty much funded for the rest of their existence. So in that case, $800 is the right price. I mean, I don't know how people miss this. I mean, I guess me too, right? Like, BioMARIN actually has a tendency of giving away good. They had this drug for LEMS, a very weird disease, and they gave it to Catalyst. All right, guys, I'm gonna have to be back in, I mean, I don't know, on SPRB, it's kind of like a pretty obviously very, very valuable drug. There's not a lot more to sort of say than I already said. I do think it'll go to 500, sort of 500 to 800. I was interviewing a new engineer. Well, the news just came out today. I mean, they have, they're gonna file for FDA approval in a few months. So I think more and more Wall Street traders, especially after what they just saw, if you're a hedge fund or something, you don't realize this is the next 𝗠𝗔𝗥𝗧𝗜𝗢 or other rare disease kind of startup. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I think 500 to 800. I mean, it's it's going to be choppy. I mean, it's not a straight line up. Yeah, make sure you sign up on Godel. I told everybody on Godel first, godelterminal.com. So a lot of people on Godel got it obviously before the tweet, so it got a good price. So make sure there's a lot of smart people on Godel. It's a really good terminal. I think they'll sell 1 million. Well, at this price, it's trading again. I don't see why they wouldn't sell. I mean, I'm assuming they end with 3 million shares. And obviously at this point, they don't need to dilute that much. So I think it could be higher than 500 because it's, if it were, like I said, look at my model right now, shares outstanding is 0.75. So assume they sell 1 million shares tonight, and I'm sure it'll be oversubscribed. There's 1.75 million shares, and then, yeah, it's $900. So you just have to believe these inputs. And so the question is, can it do what I'm forecasting? Can it do 120 million in revenue, and then 165, and then 200, and then all the way up to 400? And the company actually has a good slide on this. Let me pick it out. I know enzyme replacement like the back of my hand. It was like the first thing I studied 25 years ago. This is old school stuff, but this is back when Genzyme was fighting a company called Transkaryotic Therapeutics, TKTX. I guarantee you almost nobody in this chat remembers that. That was for Fabry disease. So they had a cool slide. Let me see if I can find that. You were 5 years old. Yeah, so I mean, the old story is Henry Tremere. There's a book called Orphan. I highly suggest this. It's called Orphan, The Quest to Save Children with Rare Genetic Disorders. This is a great book that basically describes the business of orphan drugs. And it's a wonderful book that explains how the orphan drug industry was created, and it really helped build the biotech industry as a whole. So I'll show you what people with this disease go through. It's really terrible. And this drug is looks pretty good. Lifespan of 15. So very, very, very sad disease. Yes, Aridase was from placenta, that's right. Somebody knows the... So in this disease, you are missing an enzyme that metabolizes, it breaks up this NAGLU, and you don't have NAGLU because you have a gene that won't make NAGLU. So you get the drug, which is synthetic NAGLU, breaks up this buildup of this heparan sulfate. It builds up so much that you get splenomegaly, which is your spleen gets distended from all this heparan sulfate. And so here's the slide I want you to look at. This is the heparan sulfate normal level, this bar. And after you take the drug, you go from having all this bulky heparan sulfate, which kills you, to having it at normal levels, which is kind of amazing. So you could easily see this being, the definitive treatment for this disease. And again, the slide that I wanted to show you, which is really great from a business and stock perspective, is this slide. And you can see that the revenue for the average lysosomal storage disorder disease is pretty good. Now I have 400 sort of peak sales. We do the average or the median, let's do both. We have 169, 740, 30, 311, 635, and 480, although there's gonna be new ones that are even bigger, I think. But regardless, myozyme, they don't have myozyme up here. Myozyme's pretty big. Anyway, the average is 400, and the median is 400. So my estimate of 400 is pretty reasonable. That's one way to look at it. The other way is, well, you treat 500 patients at $750 a year. This disease is a little more rare than some of these other ones. But you can see, even if it's rare, like here, 𝗍𝗏 sells the most, even though it's one of the rarest. Sanfilippo is one of these diseases I always wanted to have a treatment for myself. And so ironically, BIOMARIN, who makes a lot of those LSD drugs, sold them this drug. One second. And you might say, why would BIOMARIN do that? Well, BIOMARIN's a weird company, man. They also did this for CPRX. So I was there. I had my own rare disease drug company at the time. It's called 𝗕𝗢𝗘 now. At the time, it's called Retrophin. And I hired a guy from BIOMARIN who, well, I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, this guy, there was the US rights for this drug, FIRDAPSE, and BIOMARIN basically didn't want it. It's too small for them. So they sold it to this company, Catalyst, and Catalyst was a microcap. And now Catalyst is worth $2.5 billion. So BIOMARIN sometimes will give away these pretty good drugs. Is it going to be $1 billion drug? No. Could I even be overestimating it by a little bit? Sure. I could knock down the prices or knock down the drug a little bit. It's still $400. So, and I'm not giving them all kinds of credit that I should for other things like just interest income or something like that. But yeah, it's more or less kind of what I think, somewhere between, 400 in the sort of cautious case and, up to $1,000 for the high case. There's a bunch of lysosomal storage disease companies. The first one was Genzyme, which Sanofi ended up buying in a hostile takeover. After that, there was a company at the same time, roughly, called Transkaryotic Therapeutics, which was called TKT. TKT was acquired by Shire, and then Shire went through a lot of transformations and ultimately became Takeda. So in any event, the LSD space was very interesting. Alexion was another family favorite. We had a lot of Alexion. And so that's why I know Sarepta so well and these other things. This is my life, is these rare, crazy diseases. That's what I like. There's a cool way to help people and make money. And, a lot of people don't like me because I talk about that stuff. I don't really care, because if you talk to the people that actually have these diseases, they don't, they're not, they don't care if somebody makes money. They want somebody to make money. I met so many of these families and they say, I hope you make billions of dollars. I hope you're richer than Jeff Bezos if you make a treatment for my son who's dying, you know, and I think that's, you know, really important. I think the people who are already have the damage done will not be helped, quite frankly. It'd be nice if they did, but, you know, in the history of LSD, lysosomal storage diseases, typically if the damage has been done, you're not going to recover a lot of function. You might stop somebody from having more, you know, more damage, potentially, but I don't think you're going to end up, you know, sort of restoring function once you've had a lot of damage, developmental damage. So that's just kind of the reality of most of those types, most diseases in general, I'd say. So, but you know, it's what's interesting about this company and the stock is that before today, I don't think any of these hedge funds or mutual funds never heard of this company. Now, they got to see this and say, well, you know, this is a new player in rare diseases. This is a new game in town. And it's not even 100 million market cap. So it's going to be a pretty good ride up, I think. You know, I can see it easily get to 200 or 300 even within a week or two. I mean, I don't know, you know, nobody knows these things. You know, I thought quantum was going to stop going up too. But if I'm sitting at Adage or Citadel or 0.72 or Fidelity or whatever, and I made a lot of money in Alexion or I made a lot of money in 𝗔𝗤𝗏 a long time ago, I know these rare disease companies. I like it when a company has a brand new rare disease drug and you're telling me this thing's only 100 million market cap, easily be $1 billion. You do have to factor in the dilution, no doubt about it, but you know, depending on how they handle themselves, they may not go out and sell 1 million shares. 1 million shares would be, you know, $120 million right now. They don't need that. They only need 50 million. So if they only dilute 250,000 shares, that would be wise. That's what I would do if I were them. Now, I can't tell them what to do. You know, I think it'd be smart for them not to sell 1 million shares and just sell 250,000 shares or 500,000 shares or something like that. But in my model, I even expected them to sell 3 million, total of 2.5 million shares to get to 3, and I still got a $500 price target. If they don't hit the dilution button too hard, you know, you could easily see 800, 1,000, something like that. And again, you look back in the history of these rare disease companies, I mean, $1 billion bare minimum is a typical, you know, if you can sell 100 or 200 million of drug, you know, $1 billion is pretty much a layup. So I think that's what's going on. You know, I you know, feel pretty strongly about that. Again, that slide deck showed them dropping below to a normal level. You know, that's pretty much all you need for approval. I don't know if the manufacturing is ready to get approval. So many drug companies are getting their manufacturing not working out, but I don't think that's really a big deal. If you can get FDA approval with the clinical side, that you can always fix the manufacturing later. So here's the typical progression. So crawling, walking, first words, simple sentences, toilet training. This is the normal progression, and it starts to deviate right around 3 years old, whereas the average kid goes on to toilet training and complex sentences and basic writing. The Sanfilippo kid never sees any of that and typically dies before, you know, adulthood. Loss of mobility and feeding tube at around 8 or 9 years of age. And again, it's all because they can't metabolize this heparin sulfate. And this enzyme that you need to metabolize heparin sulfate is missing. So just make a copy of the enzyme and give it, right? It's pretty easy. Well, there's a trick because it's a brain disease. So enzymes don't cross the blood-brain barrier. So you actually have to do this thing called the Ommaya shunt, which, you know, I shout out to Dr. Chris James, who was my first chief medical officer, who told me about this. He was actually also a brain surgeon, so he knew all about this. You make a flap in the skull, and you actually deliver the drug through the Ommaya reservoir. And it's probably named after like a Dr. Ommaya or something. And you infuse the drug, and this is called intracerebral ventricular infusion. It's ICV, it's not intravenous, or it's not subcutaneous, intracerebral ventricular. So you get the ventricles of the brain, pop the drug in there, and you see this mirror, like I said, kind of the miracle result. I mean, this is enough for FDA approval. the thing that's causing you to die is this accumulation of heparin sulfate, it drops to normal. I mean, if I'm a patient or a caregiver of a patient with this, this looks like exactly what you want. It's pretty much back to normal. So you even see the liver volume go from this big splenomegalich kind of liver and spleen into normal range. So pretty exciting results. There's even this cognitive profile that's really helpful. A little hard to read this graph, but it looks like it helps normalize cognition a bit there. So anyway, it'll be FDA approved at some point soon. I mean, they're planning on filing for approval soon. What's kind of interesting here is that they got breakthrough designation, which I don't think the FDA would give that right before FDA approval filing. So the breakthrough designation is pretty nice. And they said that, here's the magic sentence here. This is why the big rally today, FDA confirmed that the cerebrospinal fluid heparin sulfate is a surrogate biomarker reasonably likely to predict clinical benefit and could serve as the basis for accelerated approval. Basically, I think they'll do it. So they're going to file in Q1, and then they probably get approval by Q3. I mean, maybe Q4. Now, again, the manufacturing of this drug is, I think, tricky. And, if they are ready to get approval on that is the big question. But either way, what happened with Scholar Rock is the FDA said, or other companies, you got to do something else for manufacturing, but we're gonna approve you on, clinical, but you still have to fix the manufacturing. So the drug's not approved yet, but the clinical side we're satisfied. So that happens sometimes as well. It doesn't matter that much, DDDD. I mean, if they go out tonight and sell 500,000 shares, I'll be really happy because they'll have 70 million and the market cap will be 250. And that's still unbelievably cheap for the next LSD drug. I mean, on Wall Street, lysosomal storage drugs are kind of very prized because, we've just seen so many of these and they're all successful. They've almost never been not successful. So that's kind of the way that is. Yes, I'm still short quantum. And please don't make fun of me. Don't you dare make fun of me. I don't like it. Well, you can always manufacture it. They made it for the trials. The question is, do they have to run a new batch or do stability or do new methods development? These things can take, a couple of quarters, but in the life cycle of a drug, they're going to sell this drug for the next 20, 30 years. It's not going to, I don't think it'll be problematic. Well, I told everybody on Godel as soon as I could, and then some other guys said that I said it, and then it started going up, which was really annoying. So then I just said it out loud because I didn't want this other company to be telling their customers what I'm saying. It's a little annoying, but it is what it is. I think a realistic market cap's $1 billion. I mean, I just got to keep in mind the share count is so low that you're going to get more shares outstanding. So maybe a safe way to do it is just say there's 2 million shares outstanding, which is very conservative. And if you say it's $1 billion market cap, it's pretty simple to do the math. That's $500 a share. So yeah, Matteo, they reverse split, so the shares outstanding are not accurate on many platforms. Interestingly, Google has it correct. Google has it at the correct market cap, which is 77 million right now. And anybody that's been trading a while knows that 77 million is pretty small. No, my performance is different right now, Syntoma. I don't have it wired that it changes the performance at any given moment. There's no doubt it would get approval because on the clinical data, because if I'm dying because this substrate is at 5 times normal and you give me a drug that turns it back to normal, that's a miracle. Why wouldn't you approve it right then and there? That's a no-brainer. And it's actually published data too. There's a publication. These triangles and these circles are patients. He's got, the normal is 150, 175. This guy's got 500, 300, 250, 200, and they all drop to the bottom. They're all clean. So low they're at the LLOQ, which is lower limit of quantification. Look at this guy. Drug's doing what it's supposed to do. Chewing up that gunk that is, literally accumulates in cells and the cells blow up. All lysosomal storage diseases work this way, which is interesting. It's always these cells that are just basically bursting with, these very hard to digest molecules. And that's why they're called lysosomal storage diseases, because the lysosome normally breaks them apart, but here the lysosomal enzyme is missing. So cure is tricky. It's the FDA's got to figure that one out. I mean, Huntington's is a big disease, and I think their data is good. It's probably good enough for approval, but I don't think it's a no-brainer for FDA. FDA could say do another trial. Your name here is 100% right. How do you get better at biostatistics? Oh, I guess you read books like this. In all seriousness, you learn what a p-value is, and you basically are good to go. You don't need to know how to do a pi notation and intervals and summations, and any of these things are pretty monotonous. Directed graphs. Learn basic biostatistics you can probably do it in a week. No other diseases, Jim. All it does is one thing, which is breaks one molecule apart, dissolves it. Yeah, that's a famous book. I read it in prison as well. Yeah, I think a lot of people have a hard time buying something after it's up, when obviously it has nothing to do with anything. This is the problem people had when I raised the price of that drug from $1,350 to $700. They saw, 5,000%, that's crazy, but if you actually did the math of how much the drug cost, it was actually not that expensive relative to every other drug. It's kind of normal price. These percentages just play games with people's heads. It's natural, it's human, but you have to just take everything into account. 20 million market cap, even right now, 70 million market cap. You got an FDA approvable drug. I mean, come on. You have to throw away the anchoring bias that you have towards numbers and say, if I'm a guy at Pfizer or private equity and somebody says, I have a drug company to sell you, they don't ask, what's the stock price? They say, well, what's the asset? And I say, okay, what's it for? Sanfilippo, okay. I know Sanfilippo. It's, like 1,000 patients, right? And you can charge $500K each, so it's 500 million. So I would pay 4 times sales, so it's about 2 billion. So if I could buy that for 1, I would do that. And then they say, what's the price? Oh, it's only a 77 market cap. I'll buy that. I'll buy that all the way up to $1 billion. That's how you do finance. You don't start with the price and say, oh my gosh, the price has gone up. That's kind of not the right way to do it. That's a little bit foolish. Crazy stock bull. Is it even going to ever get unhalted? Yeah, I mean, we did the same thing with Abivax. When Abivax came out, we started buying the crap out of it at 50. We didn't care.